One of the key tenets of object-oriented programming is something called data encapsulation. Data encapsulation is the idea that our data is safe from other programmers, other methods, etc. That way, nothing can change without our direct consent. So let's take an example. Let's say you have two developers who are both using a name of a variable that's the same name, but they're using it for different purposes. How easy would it be for that variable data to get overwritten with data that's not correct? So therefore, we want to make sure that we can encapsulate or protect our data. Right now, our radius is a public data type. You can see that we have our public accessor modifier. What we want to do is we want to make the radius private. That way, only methods within our circle class can access it. This does slow your application down just a little bit because now we'll have to go through methods to access the data, but it improves its security and data integrity. And that's the key component because we have less bugs that we have to track down, especially as our project gets larger and larger and larger. In order to make a private accessor, all we're going to do is come down here a little bit, and I'm going to say private and colon. You'll notice that Visual Studio moves it off to the side, just like the public accessor. Then I need to give it some private data. And I'm going to take my double radius, and I'm going to put it there. In fact, most of the properties for a class are going to need to be private. Sometimes you'll even have private methods, but you don't have to worry about that at this point. Okay? This is done. Any method inside of our class that wants to call radius is going to be able to call it. And if I come over here, my circle.cpp file, you'll notice that radius still runs, and that's fine. However, if I go to build this, you're going to notice that there's an error. And if I select the error, you'll notice that it's in our main function where I'm specifically calling the radius property. Because this method is not part of the class, it cannot have access to radius. We'll need to create a method for this. In fact, we're going to create two methods for it. Both these methods are going to be public, so I'm going to come down my public section. I'm first going to set a setRadius method. It's going to return nothing, so we'll say void setRadius double new radius. Then I'm going to have a method that's going to return a radius. Since our radius is a double data type, I'll specify the return type is double, get radius, and it will take no parameters. Now, all we've done at this point is define those functions, create the function headers. We need to actually build those functions in just a second. You'll notice that it's very simple and straightforward. I have radius, and my accessors are called setRadius and getRadius. In fact, accessors are often referred to as getters and setters because they get data and they set data. So this is a pretty standard formatting notation that you can see here. We usually use the variable name. One of the interesting things about this is if our method property name were to change, our functions would still operate as long as we update them. So this makes it really easy to solve these problems. Inside of our circle.cpp file, we're going to actually create our methods. First, we'll create the setter. We'll say void circle. Remember, we have to give the class definition. We're going to say setRadius. And we'll specify new radius. Okay. Now, here's one of the things that we like to do, and is one of the benefits of using data encapsulation. I can protect my data against bad information. So, for example, I know that my radius needs to be a positive number. So I'll say if new radius is greater than 0, radius is going to equal new radius. If the new radius for some reason is passed a negative number, I'm going to simply ignore that data as being incorrect. So this is a way that I can protect my radius value and ensure that I always get accurate information. Now, most of the time with a getter, I'm just going to be returning information. So it's very, very simple. First, we're going to specify it's a double because that's the data type we're returning. Our class definition, the fact we're going to get the radius. Notice that it was already right there and showing up because it was pulled out from the header file. And I'm going to return radius. Has that solved my problem? Actually, not quite. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to go back to my intro file. Notice it still is showing an error, but that's because I'm directly trying to access the property. So instead, I'm going to say c1.getRadius. And now, since I'm calling that method, if I go and run this application, it will compile correctly, and I get the information that I expect to. So that's part of data encapsulation and how I can use getters and setters to protect my data in my class.